Hey, this is Nelson. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to go over safety checks on the Himiway Cruiser. And the reason why I want to do a safety check is because we want to see where our maintenance issues might lie, and if there are any, immediately we can address those or conduct them in monthly maintenance. So before we get started, I want you to think about the letter M, okay? Because that's the path we're going to follow. We're going to start right here in the front tire, work our way up through the shocks and up to the handlebars, and then we're going to work our way down through the lower tube where the battery is, down to the crank and pedals. Then we're going to move back up to the seat, and then we're going to move down to the rear wheel. So if you see that pattern, it is literally an M. So M pattern for monthly maintenance. That's one way of thinking about it. So this will make it easy. Let's start at the front of the M. So the first thing to check is one of two quick releases, and that is the quick release right here for your front tire. We just checking to make sure it's nice and snug. Okay, it's all good. We're safe there. Then you want to check your spokes. Now you can run your hand through the spokes like this, or if you have your bike up on a rack, you can spin your tire and then just hold your hand in one place and let the spokes hit your hand, and you can pretty much feel if you have any loose spokes. You'll be able to tell, right? Now we go to the tire pressure. Now, as you can see here, the tire pressure on the Himiway Cruiser tires is 30. Now, could you go up to 35? Probably. If you're a bigger person or have some extra cargo on your bike, yeah, you can crank up the weight a little bit. I definitely wouldn't go past 40, but they put 30 on there. You can take it all the way down to probably even 20 to be safe. It depends on the path. If you're riding on smooth pavement, you can keep the tire pressure high. If you're taking on gravel, rocks, and you might need a little bit more suspension or traction, then yeah, you take the pressure down a little bit. So 30 pounds, of course, you can always do a visual inspection of the treads. Everything looks good here. So next thing we want to check is the shocks. Now, just pretty much doing a visual inspection. Everything looks good. There's no scrapes or scuff marks or any leaky grease or oil on there. So everything looks good. If there was, that's something you could address, in maintenance. Now, you can also test how strong the connection is from your quick release. If you just do this, you grab it. And the reason why we're grabbing down here and not up here on the handlebars, because I want to test something else first. We're going to test this down here. Make sure we're good here. Just go ahead and shake it a little bit. Just, and it's solid. It's not loose. It's not moving. So I know we're nice and tight down here. Now the reason why I grabbed it here and not on the handlebars is because you can also have loose components here in your head. This is the head of the bike. Inside this head you have various spacers and ball bearings, old ball bearings, that seals and whatnot, that can also go bad. So when you test that, you can grab your handlebars and you can give it a shake. And if you feel any wobble or hear any moving or clicks that might be coming from the headset right here, that's something you definitely want to address in maintenance. In fact, this might be a bigger job than most people are willing to do at home. This is something you might have to take in to a professional. But definitely check for that. Make sure you don't have any wobbling sensations or any noise coming from your head. So next thing to check is for the brakes. Now I'm going to be manually pressing on the bike grip up here, but you just want to roll your bike forward and see if it stops. You can see the caliper moving. Now I have hydraulic brakes here. They're very, very responsive. Okay. All right. And when it comes to e-bikes, there are a lot of components. When you're dealing with any bike, whether it's an e-bike or a regular bike, with many moving parts, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when these parts may go bad or get loose or break on you. But with e-bikes, you have to keep in mind you have a lot of cables, a lot of them. So you definitely just want to do a visual inspection, make sure everything is connected, nothing's frayed. Also, you have range of motion. So when you turn your handlebars side to side, nothing's going to get snagged, you know, because there are a lot of areas, especially if you're like me and you have accessories everywhere, your wires and cables could get snagged on something. And when you need to turn, the last thing you need to do, you know, last thing you want is to find out you can't turn because a cable has prevented you from turning, you know, to the left or to the right. Now we're up on top of the handlebars, and we want to check the handlebars and make sure they're actually screwed in pretty tight. Now, we're not going to actually screw them in or anything. That's something you do for maintenance. We're just kind of going over safety checks. So we're just going to check and see if that's something that needs to be done. So to do that, you know, it's probably easier with two hands. You'd have one hand on each handlebar, and you just put some weight on it to see if it goes up or down, because you definitely don't want that to happen if you hit a bump while you're riding and the handlebar goes forward or back. It's a very common injury from bikes is the handlebar not being tightened to the stem. Next thing is I have replaced the twist throttle. That's not something you have to do, but I did it for safety. That's something, you know, I've done so in case, you know, friends or family ride my bike and they're not used to a twist throttle, and it's just, you know, a lot safer. I've also replaced the handlebars grips with rubber grips that you can clamp down. You may have noticed on some bikes, the grips tend to twist a little bit or slide off. Now, I don't like that. I just kind of put these rubber grips on there to keep it nice and solid and in place while I'm riding. Also, don't forget that when you turn your bike on before you start riding, if you have your bike on and you haven't mounted your bike yet, be sure to just put it to 0. If you're a new rider and you're just getting used to the e-bikes with pedal assist, you know, and you haven't mounted your bike yet, you can go ahead and hit the minus button and then just bring it to 0. That way, you're not going to accidentally, you know, have the pedal assist kick in when you're just kind of moving your bike forward with your feet or something, and you weren't expecting it. When you're ready to ride, you can go ahead and press it, you know, and start with 1, or just go full throttle. Now, moving on down the lower tube of the bike frame, we have the battery. Now, it's always good to check the battery level, obviously, because you don't want to be stuck. I have full. You can also check it on your LCD screen as well. Now, you may find that the levels may not match exactly, so be sure to double check both just to be safe. Then moving on down the tube, you see the controller. This is basically the brain box of your bike. And it's hard to see, but I'm going to go ahead and get the camera down there. You have a bunch of cables which are down there, right here. They're attached to the controller and run up through to all the components, including the motor. Now, if you can check that, be sure to check and make sure none of those are loose, because they have cable ties. Sometimes these cable ties could break. Make sure there's nothing sticking out that could get caught near the chain or the crank, and make sure nothing's frayed, because you could hit a curb or you can have rocks, you know, over time if you're, you know, on the bike trails, and that could chip away at the rubber or plastic around the cables. So definitely check for frayed wires underneath there. And then you want to check your crank and also the pedals. Now, when you look at your chain, you're just checking for debris, any rust. I'm not saying rust would be an issue, but it's something you could possibly address later in maintenance. But you definitely want to make sure there's no serious debris in the chain if you were previously bike riding and perhaps something got lodged in between the links. Now, when it comes to the pedals, you want to make sure they free spin, of course, and then that bolt right there that goes into the crank is not spinning. If they're both spinning at the same time, or if you could move it around, you definitely want to address that in maintenance by tightening that up. So now we're going to work our way up the bike post. And here you have your quick release. Make sure that's nice and tight. Okay. Again, you can replace this with aftermarket clamps. That way your seat can't easily be stolen, much like your front tire. You can always replace that with a bolt, and that way it's a lot difficult for someone to steal your front tire. But you definitely want to make sure you got no creaks. You want to definitely manipulate it, and just kind of before you get on it, check it. You want to make sure everything's lined up correctly, because this could be a serious accident if your seat decides to come off the tracks, depending what type of mount you have. But check just by shaking the seat, making sure it's good, making sure it's nice and tight here, and it should be okay. Now I'm going to go down to the gears. Again, this is a 7-speed Shimano, and I don't see any serious debris or rust. We're looking good there. And we want to make sure we have a cap here to protect the power cable that goes into the motor. Now this is important because if this gets tangled up in any way, this could spin while everything's turning, and you could seriously fray this wire, and that might be a whole other ball of wax with replacing the motor. So make sure you're covered up there with the cap. Make sure nothing's twisting. Make sure nothing's frayed, because this right here is a connection to your power cable to the motor. Back here, your Shimano 750 watt motor. All right. Now we have a derailleur. Hopefully you've opted to put your derailleur on to protect the whole derailleur system from getting whacked or bumped out of place. These things are very, very sensitive, so you definitely want to put some sort of guard. And like I said, these derailleur guards come with the Himiway. If you don't have it, be sure to contact them to see if you can get one. Now we're looking at the rear brake, and we're going to do the same thing we did to the front. We're going to roll the bike forward while manually pressing on the bike brake grip up front, just to make sure it stops, and you can see it moving. All right, I don't hear any grinding. Everything is very, very responsive. And then you also want to do, again, the spoke check. Make sure you don't have any loose spokes, because when you're hitting large bumps, these spokes can loosen up. So we've checked that. All right. Now this cap, if you're ever assembling your bike, don't throw this away. This is something you can keep on there. That way nothing gets rusted here, because it would be terrible if this gets so rusted over time that this bolt becomes very difficult to take off. So you can go ahead and, when you're assembling your bike, keep this on. You don't have to throw it away. Keep it on like you would keep on the other side with the power cable. Now when it comes to safety on the road, the Himiway bike, as you can see, this model does come with the reflective stripe around the tire for driving at night. It also comes with integrated lights. As you can see here, I have a rear light, and just below here, which is optional, doesn't come with it, but I have a camera. So instead of installing a mirror, I have a camera which goes to a front LCD, to which I can actually watch what's behind me on either side. So I don't have mirrors, I just have the camera. Now we also have a front light. Also, don't forget, when it comes to safety, be prepared. If you have a cell phone with GPS, or if you have one of those Garmin Trail GPSs, you know, be sure to mount them either to the handlebars or, you know, something like this, so that you have a GPS, just in case if something did happen to you, you're able to see where you're at if you get lost, or if you have your phone, you're able to call somebody for emergency assistance as well. All right, so that concludes our safety check for monthly maintenance issues. Now, if you like this video, please like, subscribe if you want to subscribe, and we're going to be going over some actual maintenance issues down the road. So when those future maintenance videos come up, you're able to get alerted on those maintenance videos. Also, if you're interested in the Himiway, there's a link down below where you could click and get a discount on purchasing your Himiway Cruiser. So this is Nelson. Be safe. Have a good one.